morning. My name is Barry Henderson, and this is the Etowah Chief. And I'm standing at the entrance to the Etowah Museum in Cartersville. I would like to take a few minutes to explain the piece, and hopefully you'll have some more education as to what the Mississippian Indian culture was all about, and maybe even a visual to relate to. It was about 2.5 to 3 years ago I started this project, and I really started it more for an educational piece because I felt that this area lacked any representation of what the Indians may have looked like. So I went through a lot of research on my own and studied the artifacts here at the museum and talked to the operators of the museum here, primarily a lot with Keith Bailey, who helped me with the history. And so what you see here, it's a bronze statue, and the pieces that he's holding, this is a ceremonial axe, that's a mace, a ceremonial mace. You'll see the cape is feathers, and a lot of the pieces on here, almost all of them, came from the museum. This is a copper feather. It would have been a copper feather, and it's in the museum. These are ear spools, which are accurate. This is a copper pendant with the 4 directions, or the 4 areas of life, or directions of the seasons. These designs in the fabric are actually the same designs that were found on fabric in the mounds. We have very little to go on as to what they actually wore, because everything has deteriorated, other than those things were made out of stone and copper. So what I used primarily for my reference material was the ceremonial copper pieces, and they showed, even though they were stylized, they gave me a good idea as to how to convey that to the reality of the statue. So during the course of this, I was introduced to Jim Langford, and Jim is a amateur archaeologist, but I think extremely knowledgeable from a child all the way up on the museum and on the history of the the Mississippian culture. And he introduced me to Adam King. Adam King wrote the book on the Etowah Mounds, and I had finished this piece for the most part, and I asked them to critique the piece from their standpoint as archaeologists and what they felt maybe should be the case. I had done more of a generic, some of the pieces a little bit more generic, that I used reference material out of the mounds in Alabama. And they said, why don't we just try to make it a piece that is totally representative of the Etowah mounds. And so we did that. So every piece that you see here is a reflection and a reference to the mounds themselves. I have been asked a number of times whether it's this piece or any piece that I do from the bronze art standpoint. What I will do is I will create the piece you see here exactly in clay form. Once I have finished the clay, and it literally looks just like this, it's the same size as this, I will then send that to a foundry, an art foundry. We're fortunate to have one. It's the Inferno Foundry, about an hour's drive south of here, which is convenient for me. And I take it to them, and then it's left there about 90 days. It takes them at least that long to do the finished product. But they'll take it and make a mold, and then there's the lost wax method of casting bronze, which goes back about 3,000 years, and they basically have not changed that process. So once it's the mold's made, it's cast, it's then to the point where it's just the raw bronze, I'll go down and I will work with the people to put the correct patina on it that I want. That's the finish on it, whether it be color or, but what I've chosen here is what I just call a traditional patina. I wanted it to be just a traditional piece. I didn't want to get into color. I didn't want to get into something that I really didn't know what the color would have been to some extent. So I kept it somewhat traditional and neutral. The whole process, as I told you, from start to finish, I've had people ask me, how long did it take you to do this? And just for the fun of it on this piece, I did keep the time, and it took me about 110 hours, just my hands-on part of the sculpting. That's not a great deal of time. It sounds like it, but the biggest amount of time is the research. Going back and forth, reading books, talking to the archaeologists, all of that. And I think for any artist to come up with something, especially when he's relating it to something that's representational in history or any particular subject, the more research he does, the more accurate it is. And I have found that there's always someone who will say, and they are an expert, and they'll say, well, it really wasn't like that, or it really was this way, or it was really that way. You never can appease everybody. In this instance, though, I think because there is the somewhat unknown as to what these people really looked like, I think by having Jim Langford and Adam King, I got about as much expert opinions as I could get. I told them just shoot holes in it. They're not going to hurt my feelings, and they did. But there really wasn't a whole lot of holes to shoot in it by the time I got to them with all the research I'd done. The people here at the museum have been extremely helpful with their knowledge and help, and that made it a lot easier for me that they were very supportive. The biggest, once I got the idea, once I started the sculpting, I got the research and so forth, the next big thing was getting it into the Department of Natural Resources. In other words, even though we were going to donate this piece to the museum, it has to go through the bureaucracy, lack of a better word, the Department of Natural Resources. The Department of Natural Resources was very interested in this, but as you might imagine, sometimes it goes very slowly. The other aspect, which was very important, is it had to get the approval of the Indians and the tribes that were the permission, and had to come from the Creek Nation in Oklahoma. There's 5 tribes of the Creek Nation in Oklahoma. Over the last very few years, I want to say in the last 5 years, I may be wrong, Jim might tell me or whoever, but is that they have actually hired archaeologists who are Native American archaeologists, and those archaeologists now are working with groups who have an interest in anything that's related to the Native Americans in this area. And so we submitted this. There was a meeting over in Athens. I did not attend, but Jim submitted the pictures of this to the archaeologists, the Indian archaeologists. Long story short, they took it back to Oklahoma, presented it to the tribes, and the tribes approved this, which was a major thing for me, because that then would make it a whole lot easier to fall in place with the Department of Natural Resources. Once that happened, then we somewhat crept through the Department of Natural Resources. Another person that helped me a lot on this was Matthew Gamble, our state representative. He's very pro arts, and he was a big help to me. So there were a number of people who made this happen. I think for the last maybe comment I want to make is that I'm very progressive in the arts. We recently formed the art commission here, Art in Bartow, and I think that it's very important if we can portray or explain or educate our past, our history through the arts. Now we're combining 2 very important aspects or so forth of our interest in the community. So if we can pull our community together in educating with the arts and supporting those groups who have an interest in history, I think we're well on our way to adding to what we've already got started here. We're in a very rich cultural area, historical area, and the more we can get involved in our history, and the more we can understand maybe our present and our future. And in closing, I do want you to, I think you can maybe hear what I've said and see this on the EVHS website, which is, I think if you relate it or go to Arthur's Corner, and there they have not only this piece and education about it, they have other videos and other presentations that they're doing and will continue to do. So with everybody maybe being locked indoors, not being able to get out, this is a good way to go explore history and also the arts as well. So thanks again, and appreciate everybody's support. Greatly appreciate the support of the EVHS and their donations to help make this possible. Thanks very much.